Before the Spanish galleons ever set their sails toward the Pacific, before the name Philippines even existed, the islands were alive with trade, politics, and power. They were not the scattered, unconnected tribes described in colonial chronicles. They were civilizations, with rulers, gold, ships, laws, and languages. Their names were whispered in the courts of China and India, recorded in scrolls now yellowed with age: Butuan, San Malan, Namayan, and Dapitan. Our goal on this video is 500 likes, and don't forget to subscribe and join us as we uncover more hidden story of Philippines history. Every like and every subscriber helps keep the history of our ancestors alive. Our story begins over 1,000 years ago, in a time when the archipelago was not yet bound under one flag, but united in spirit through the sea. For the sea, more than any land, was the bridge that connected these early kingdoms. Across the waters of the Sulu Sea, the Mindanao coast, and the Pasig River, ships carved of hardwood and bound with fiber carried cargo, culture, and courage. These were the balangay boats, the pride of ancient Filipino craftsmanship. They were so perfectly constructed that one could travel from Butuan to Champa or to the ports of China, guided only by stars and wind. In the records of the Song dynasty, dated around 1011 CE, appears a name few today have heard: San Malan. It was not myth, but a kingdom, located near present-day Zamboanga. The records describe its ruler, Raja Chulan, sending emissaries to the Emperor of China. Their tribute was unlike anything expected from a small island polity: aromatic resins, ivory, dates, and fine textiles. The Chinese scribes noted these gifts with surprise, a sign that San Malan's wealth stretched far beyond what was typical for a remote kingdom. Raja Chulan's name, believed to be of Indian origin, hints at how ideas and culture traveled the seas long before European contact. San Malan was not isolated. It was connected to a network that spanned the Indian Ocean, the Malay Peninsula, and the South China Sea. To the northeast of San Malan, another power rose: the Kingdom of Butuan. Butuan's fame reached China earlier still, around the year 1001 CE. Its king, Kiling, dispatched ambassadors to the imperial court, bearing tributes of gold and native goods. The Chinese chroniclers marveled at the fine craftsmanship of the Butuanese and their remarkable boats, capable of carrying hundreds of warriors and traders across open ocean. Archaeologists in Agusan del Norte have since uncovered proof of these accounts: the famed Butuan balangays, dug out from the silt of the Masao River. These boats, dating back to the 10th century, are the oldest known examples of ocean-going vessels in Southeast Asia. Butuan was not merely a trading port, it was a city of gold. Excavations have revealed exquisite gold ornaments, funerary masks, jewelry, and pilonchitos, tiny gold coins that predate the first Spanish peso by centuries. These artifacts speak of a society rich in artistry and organization. They had social classes, spiritual rituals, and leaders known as datus, rajas, and babaylans. Butuan's gold flowed along trade routes that connected it to China, the Malay archipelago, and possibly even as far as India and Arabia. This was not the image of a primitive people. It was a thriving, literate civilization that mastered the seas. Far to the north, in what is now Manila, another kingdom quietly flourished: Namayan. Long before Spanish colonizers built their walled city of Intramuros, the Pasig River teemed with life and commerce. Namayan, ruled by the noble house of Lacandula and his ancestors, was a powerful Tagalog polity. It controlled trade along the river, stretching from Manila Bay to the foothills of Laguna. The people of Namayan spoke Old Tagalog and Old Malay. wrote in the elegant script of Baybayin, and used piloncitos and gold rings as currency. What made Namayan unique was its cultural fusion. Archaeological finds show Indianized influences, beads, statues, and trade goods linked to the Hindu-Buddhist world. Yet Namayan remained distinctly Filipino, blending imported ideas with indigenous beliefs and customs. Its society was structured, its leadership hereditary, and its people skilled in metalwork, weaving, and agriculture. When the Spanish first arrived, they encountered not wilderness, but a city-state with rules, rulers, and reverence for the spirits that guarded land and river. Beyond Namayan and Butuan, another lesser-known kingdom left traces both in legend and soil. The Dapitan kingdom, sometimes called the Kingdom of Bul. Centered around modern Bohol, it was a hub of trade and diplomacy. According to local oral traditions and the Eskaya people's records, Dapitan was already a significant center when the Spaniards landed in the Visayas. Artifacts recovered in Mansasa and Dawis, pottery, tools, and ornaments suggest a vibrant community with links to the same trade networks as Butuan and San Malan. It was here, centuries later, that the famous blood compact, or Sandugo, between Datu Sikatuna and the Spanish explorer Miguel López de Legazpi would take place, symbolizing friendship, though it also foreshadowed the coming of colonization. But before this contact, Dapitan's people already had their own alliances and rivalries, their own spiritual systems, and their own stories of origin. Together, these ancient polities form the lost map of pre-colonial Philippines, a map erased, rewritten, and buried under centuries of colonial narrative. The colonizers would later describe the archipelago as discovered, as if these islands were asleep before 1521. Yet the evidence tells another story, one of complexity, connection, and civilization. One of the greatest proofs of this lies not in gold, but in stone. The Laguna Copperplate inscription, discovered in 1989 in Lumban, Laguna, dates back to 900 AD, more than 6 centuries before Magellan. Inscribed in a mixture of Old Malay, Sanskrit, and Old Javanese, the copperplate records a legal document, a debt pardon issued by a ruler named Jayadewa. This single artifact changes everything. It proves that early Filipinos had written language, systems of governance, and links to the wider Indianized world. It shows that laws were observed, debts forgiven, and justice rendered. It is the voice of a society both literate and lawful. When we place the Laguna Copperplate beside the Chinese annals, a clear picture emerges. The Philippines was part of a globalized world long before Western contact. Ships from Champa, Java, and Fujian anchored along our coasts. Merchants bartered ceramics for gold, aromatics for pearls, silk for shells. The archipelago was not a backwater, it was a maritime crossroads. Even religion and culture bore the mark of exchange. Artifacts show traces of Hindu and Buddhist symbols, like the golden image of the deity Tara found in Agusan, a statue believed to have originated from Java or Sri Lanka. Indigenous animism coexisted with these imported beliefs, forming a unique spiritual mosaic. Babaylans, the spiritual leaders, often women, served as healers, storytellers, and keepers of memory. They bridged the visible and invisible worlds, ensuring harmony between people and nature. But as centuries passed, the balance shifted. The rise of Islam in Mindanao and Sulu brought new rulers, new faiths, and new connections to the Malay world. The Raja of Sulu, the Sultan of Maguindanao, and the other southern polities grew powerful, inheriting the maritime legacy of their predecessors. Meanwhile, in the north, kingdoms like Namayan and Tondo competed for influence along the Pasig. Each believed themselves the rightful center of the island's wealth. By the time Magellan's expedition crossed the Pacific in 1521, they did not find a blank land but a living world, dotted with ports, kingdoms, and dynasties. When the Spanish priest Antonio Pigafetta described the Filipinos as skilled traders and navigators, he was witnessing the remnants of an older age, the age of Butuan and San Malan. And yet, much of this history was buried. Colonial powers had little interest in remembering the sovereignty that existed before their arrival. The Spanish friars rewrote history to begin with conquest, erasing centuries of native rule. For generations, Filipino children grew up learning that civilization began with colonization, a tragedy of memory that still echoes today. But history, no matter how long it sleeps, does not die. It waits beneath the soil, in the whispers of old songs, in the gleam of gold unearthed by archaeologists. Every barangay boat preserved, every inscription translated, every artifact displayed in a museum is a voice speaking across time. We were here, we ruled, we traded, we dreamed. The lost kingdoms of San Malan, Butuan, Namayan, and Dapitan are more than stories. They are the foundation of a civilization that defied isolation, that mastered the seas, and that built identities strong enough to survive centuries of colonization. The next time someone asks where Philippine civilization began, the answer should not start with the arrival of Magellan. It should begin with the glow of gold in Butuan, the laws inscribed on copper in Laguna, the ships sailing out of San Malan, and the voices of the people of Namayan calling across the Pasig. Because long before the world called it the Philippines, this archipelago already had a name, not a single one, but many, and each name carried the weight of a kingdom. Your support tells the world that Filipino history deserves to be remembered, told, and shared. Subscribe, share this story, and be part of keeping the legacy of the lost kingdoms alive. Because the past is not gone. It waits for those who still listen.